Hello, everybody. So, great financial numbers you saw. Low inflation, very low inflation. Prices are down, way down. Gasoline is less than $2 in many places, a gallon, which nobody expected to see, but I did, because we're going by the initial expression of drill, baby, drill, and prices are coming down very strongly. And as goes gasoline and oil and gas, so goes the rest of other products that were high because of Biden. So we inherited a mess, and we've brought our country back very, very powerfully. Crime numbers are way down, despite the fact that they let in 25 million people, many of whom should not have been allowed into our country with their open border policy. But it's the country's doing very well. Any questions?
What are you expecting from these Iran talks in Geneva tomorrow?
So I'll be involved in those talks indirectly, and they'll be very important. We'll see what can happen. It's been typically Iran's a very tough negotiator. They're good negotiators, or bad negotiators. I would say they're bad negotiators, because we could have had a deal instead of sending the B-2s in to knock out their nuclear potential, and we had to send the B-2s. I hope they're going to be more reasonable. They want to make a deal.
Have you been told that a deal is next to impossible?
No, I think they want to make a deal. I don't think they want the consequences of not making a deal. They want to make a deal.
Are you going to sit down with Democrats this week on DHS funding, sir?
I will, but we have to protect our law enforcement. They've done a great job. I just got finished saying that we have the best crime numbers we've had in many years, and on murders, 125 years. And that's despite a lot of people that shouldn't have been let into our country coming into our country, criminals, many, many criminals. But we've taken out tens of thousands of people, brought them back to their countries. Many of the criminals that were brought in, allowed to come in, have been removed. So, we're okay. But to have the best crime numbers, which aren't made by me, these are made by people that do that, many left-leaning. We have the best murder numbers. Horrible thing to say, but we have the best murder numbers since 1900. That's before my father was born. 125 years, think of it. The best crime numbers since 1900 having to do with murder, and really good crime numbers, the best in years.
Are there any demands that Democrats are making that you're okay with?
Well, I don't like some of the things they're asking for. We're going to protect law enforcement. We're going to protect ICE. They're part of the whole system that is working. In Washington, D.C. now is considered a very safe city. When I took over, it was a city that we were losing 2-3 people a week. Over 100 people a year were being murdered in Washington. Now it's considered a very safe city. And we did that. I did it over a fairly short period of time, too.
On DHS, recent news reports have discussed the widespread belief that Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski are in a personal relationship. Is that a bad look? Recent news reports have discussed the possibility that Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski are in a close personal relationship. Is that a bad look, and do you think she'll be in the job much longer?
I don't know about that. I haven't heard that. I'll find out about it, but I have not heard it.
Do you think that will you give your State of the Union speech if we're still in a shutdown next week?
Well, I think I would. Yeah. Wouldn't bother me. I would give it. Yeah.
How are the negotiations going?
With what? Which one? We have a lot of negotiations.
No, with the government shutdown.
This is a Democrat shutdown. This has nothing to do with Republicans. This is a Democrat shutdown.
The
They're upset that the crime numbers are so good. They're very unhappy that the crime numbers are so good. They're very unhappy that there's a movement for getting voter ID. They want voter ID. The population, 98%, want voter ID. They don't want voter ID because they want to cheat in elections. They also want other things. They don't want mail-in ballots. They want to end mail-in ballots, which is corrupt. And one other thing that they're insisting on is proof of citizenship. And the Democrats don't want to give proof of citizenship. They don't want to give voter ID. Think of it. Who wouldn't want proof of citizenship? I ask you, Steve. Who wouldn't want voter ID? And why would you want mail-in ballots if you know it's corrupt? It's a corrupt system. We're the only country in the world that has this system of mail-in ballots. Think of it. The only country in the world that has this system of mail-in ballots, because they cheat. And the fact is they could never get elected if they ever changed. They know if you had voter ID, If you had proof of citizenship, they could never win an election, and they know that, and they're fighting to the hill. And I put this down with men playing in women's sports. I put it down with transgender for everybody. I put it down with their horrible open border policy as being ridiculous. They don't want voter ID, no voter ID. And I put that down in the same category with men playing in women's sports. I'm going to add a fourth category. They don't want voter ID. Go ahead.
So Hillary Clinton said in an interview today that she and her husband are getting pulled into the Epstein matter to divert attention from you, and that your administration has something to hide. What's your response to that?
I have nothing to hide. I've been exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. They went in hoping that they'd find it and found just the opposite. I've been totally exonerated. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein was fighting that I don't get elected with some author, a sleazebag, by the way. And I've been totally exonerated. No, they're getting pulled in, and that's their problem. I don't know. They're going to have to see what happens. But I watched her in Munich, and she seriously has Trump derangement syndrome.
Do you think that she should publicly testify?
You know, I've been totally exonerated on Epstein, and it's really interesting because they've been pulled in. Think of it. They've been pulled in. Clinton and many other Democrats have been pulled in. Yeah.
The USS Gerald Ford, which is sprinting from the Caribbean to the Middle East, is about to hit its 8-month deployment mark. Usually they're deployed for about 6 months or so. Is there any concern that U.S. carriers are being stretched too thin?
I'll answer the question then.
You're warning Cuba to make a deal. What does that deal look like? What do you want them to
Make a
do?
deal. Cuba is right now a failed nation. They don't even have jet fuel to get for airplanes to take off. They're clogging up their runway. We're talking to Cuba right now. I have Marco Rubio talking to Cuba right now, and they should absolutely make a deal because it's really a humanitarian threat. And we have a lot of great Cuban Americans, and they're going to be very happy when they're going to be able to go back and say hello to their relatives and do things that they should have been allowed to do for a long time. I'm very interested in the people that are here that were treated so badly by Castro and the Cuban authorities. They have been treated horribly. So we'll see how it all turns out. But Cuba and us, we are talking. In the meantime, there's an embargo. There's no oil. There's no money. There's no anything.
If a deal isn't made, would you consider an operation like the one in Venezuela?
I don't want to answer that. Why would I answer that? If I was, it wouldn't be a very tough operation, as you can figure. But I don't think that'll be necessary.
Mr. President, Marco Rubio received really positive reviews in Munich. Is there
very good reviews?
Is there a scenario in which you would support him at the top of the ticket in 28?
Something I don't have to worry about now. I've got 3 years to go. So it's something I don't have to worry. JD's fantastic and Marco's, they're both fantastic. I think Marco did a great job in Munich.
President Xi, in your talk with him recently, warned about sending more weapons to Taiwan. What was your response to him? Are you going to send more weapons to Taiwan?
I have a response. I'm talking to him about it. We had a good conversation, and we'll make a determination pretty soon.
Tell us about your trip
We have a very good relationship with President Xi. In fact, I'll be going, I guess, in April.
I'm sorry. Tell us about your trip to Rome, Georgia on Thursday. Your trip to Marjorie Taylor Greene's old district.
Well, we have a lot of people that want to take Marjorie Taylor Greene's place, and many, many candidates, and I have to choose one. And they say whoever I endorse is going to win, but we have a lot of good candidates who want to take her place.
So your Board of Peace meets for the first time this week. You said it could be the most consequential international organization ever. That's a high bar. What do you want for this first meeting?
Well, I think it can be. We're going to have all world leaders. They're putting up tremendous amounts of money, and I think it's going to go far beyond Gaza. I think it'll be peace all over the world. And we're working in conjunction with the United Nations. Look, the United Nations is there. They haven't lived up to potential. The United Nations has great potential. They haven't lived up to the potential, but I think they might aid us a little bit. But we have the greatest leaders in the world joining the Board of Peace, and we'll be doing it in conjunction with, in some cases, the United Nations, and see if we can get the United Nations to get on the ball.
You've been a kingmaker in a lot of Republican primaries. A lot of people,
including foreign nations. I was very honored to see that a very wonderful prime minister in Japan won by a landslide. I think she was going to win, but she won by just about the biggest vote ever in Japan. And she attributed my endorsement for that. And that's very good because We have a great relationship with her and Japan.
A lot of Republicans in D.C. are asking you to endorse John Cornyn, but you haven't yet. Is there a chance you would endorse Paxton, and why haven't you endorsed Cornyn?
I just haven't made a decision on that race yet. It's got a ways to go, and I haven't. He's a good man. John is a good. I like all three of them, actually. I like all three. Those are the toughest races. They've all supported me. They're all good, and you're supposed to pick one. So we'll see what happens. But I support all
Are
three.
you going to get involved in the rift between UAE and Saudi Arabia?
No, I'm not. I would
What do
be.
you think of that?
I
Somebody-
would be. Well, I can settle it very easily. But they have they do indeed have a rift, and we can get it settled very easily. I settle wars. I settle a lot of rifts between countries. You've been noticing, right? That's an easy one to settle.
On Venezuela, Nancy Rodriguez last week said that Nicolas Maduro is still a legitimate president and is innocent. I know you said the relationship is a 10, but I'm curious, what's your
I
thoughts
think we have
on
a
that?
great relationship. I think she probably has to say that. I think politically, maybe she has to say that. But the relationship with Venezuela, she's doing a very good job. And I fully understand that statement.
In Gaza,
You're going to have Ukraine talks tomorrow as well in Geneva with Witkoff and Jared Kushner.
Yeah.
What are you expecting there? Is there
Well, in big talks, it's going to be very easy. I mean, look, so far, Ukraine better come to the table fast. That's all I'm telling you. We are in a position, we want them to come. And by the way, I watched AOC answering questions in Munich. This was not a good look for the United States. I watched Gavin Newsom answering questions in Munich, and this was a bad look for our country. These two people are incompetent. And at least Hillary's competent. She's just Trump deranged. She was so deranged. She is an angry woman. But I watched the other two speaking and answering basic questions. Look, Gavin has destroyed California. And AOC, I never heard her speak very much. And they started answering questions. She had no idea what was happening. She had no idea how to answer, very important questions concerning the world. But she can't answer questions concerning New York City either, because New York City is got some problems.
now that Gaza is entering phase 2, should Israel lift its ban on foreign journalists being allowed into Gaza?
We'll be lifting a lot of bans pretty soon. I think you're going to see everything opening up. Gaza, look, we have peace in the Middle East. Now, you have some flames here and there, but we essentially have peace in the Middle East. And that happened primarily when we did the B-2 attack on the potential nuclear power. They would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month. If that happened, it would have been a whole different deal. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
So the $5 billion that you announced yesterday for the Board of Peace, is that a down payment, or are you expecting
We
more?
want to help people. That's peanuts compared to the kind of money that has been spent in the Middle East by Bush, by Obama, by all of these people, by Biden. I mean, the money he spent. But the money he spent, that's such a small amount of money by comparison. But we want to make it successful. I think it has the chance to be the most consequential board ever assembled of any kind.
What was called for Ron DeSantis?
Great. We had a great time. We had Ron and a couple of other people, two great coaches, as you know. The two greatest coaches, I would say, certainly in college football. And we had a good time playing golf. Thank you very much.
What?
I didn't get to play today because I'm working on other things, very important things, much more important than golf. Thank you very much.
Melania for Valentine's, Mr. President?
She's on the plane. Melania's on the plane. We have a movie star on the plane.
Did you have any Valentine's Day plans with her?
Did I have what?
Did you do anything for Valentine's with her? Did you give her flowers?
I better not tell you that. Goodbye, everybody. That's the toughest question. No, she's very, I'm proud of the fact, her movie's so successful. It's a tremendous hit. And she does a good job. She does a very consequential work. I think you're going to see in the end that she's going to go down as one of the truly great first ladies. When you see what she's doing with Russia, Ukraine, and so many of the other things she's doing, she's done a good job. She works very hard.
Is Westmore invited to the White House this week, Mr. President?
Just so you understand, the governors were all, other than two. One was from Colorado, where he's got a 73-year-old woman who's probably got serious cancer, confined, and for some time in solitary confinement, because she pointed out the voter theft that was taking place. In other words, she pointed it out. They arrested her and they gave her a 9-year sentence. And he better let her go because it's a disgrace. And the other guy's just a bad governor. He's not doing a good job. Wes Moore, he's doing a terrible job. And you can see that. Well, I didn't invite those two. If the rest of them don't want to show up, that's okay. I hear they're coming, a lot of them. The White House is a great place to be. But no, I don't like the job that Wes Moore's doing. I don't like the job he's doing at the bridge. I don't like the fact that he did that horrible, with the pipes and the Potomac. And he's not doing the job. They got to do it. And I'm going to have to get the federal government involved in getting it fixed because he can't fix anything. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome one and all to the Indoctrination Monday night's show. I'm glad to have you with me. Wanted to show a little bit of President Trump's gaggle on Air Force One and just some of the things he mentioned. I also want to show a few clips of Marco Rubio in Munich and maybe AOC just to show how clear the delineation is between the MAGA cabinet, President Trump's cabinet, and Make America Great Again. I'm okay with that because I'm American. If I was from any other country, I might not be okay with that. But that's not the president of my country if I live in another country. This is the president of the United States of America. So there's no apology tour being given in Europe, in Munich, with the exception of the Democrats, AOC, Gavin Newsom, even Hillary Clinton, just absolutely insane how they're looking at what we're doing here in the United States and calling it ridiculous or calling it fascism or calling it imperialism. It's absolutely absurd. Good to see you, Kevin. Let's check our coats, folks. If you're new to the Sned Shed, as we call these humble surroundings, it's nice and warm in here. Got the T-shirt on. The gun show is live and small arms. And we are ready to rock and roll with some great information this evening about what's going on. But I invite you to imagine your preconceived notions, unconscious bias wrapped up in a big winter coat that you're stepping in out of the cold from. And you got this big coat, cumbersome, but has all of your ego and all that wrapped up in it. And we just ask you to take off that coat, check that coat at the coat check, grab your claim ticket, grab your snack, your favorite beverage, your favorite your favorite person, pet, just bring it all with you, cuddle up, and let's have a nice evening together. Cheers, everybody. So, my friends, Tommy, good to see you. We are really being led for the first time in a long time by some pretty exceptional human beings that have fallen in line, if you will, or gotten behind President Trump and his agenda. And his agenda is simply to make America great again. And that's what's happening. And if you're not paying attention, and if you're paying attention to mainstream media, you are going to not realize that because the fake stream media is just that. They're trying to keep the deep state alive, and they cannot, because what is going down is the destruction of the deep state. Here's a bit of Rubio in Munich.
For 5 centuries before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across the globe. But in 1945, for the first time since the age of Columbus, it was contracting. Europe was in ruins. Half of it lived behind an iron curtain, and the rest looked like it would soon follow. The great Western empires had entered into terminal decline, accelerated by godless communist revolutions and by anti-colonial uprisings that would transform the world and drape the red hammer and sickle across vast swaths of the map in the years to come. Against that backdrop, then as now, many came to believe that the West's age of dominance had come to an end, and that our future was destined to be a faint and feeble echo of our past. But together, our predecessors recognized that decline was a choice, and it was a choice they refused to make. This is what we did together once before, and this is what President Trump and the United States want to do again now, together with you. And this is why we do not want our allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it. And this is why we do not want allies to rationalize the broken status quo rather than reckon with what is necessary to fix it. For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline. We do not seek to separate.
That's important, folks. Please listen to that again.
What is necessary to fix it. For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline. We
will no longer be caretakers of the West's polite and caretakers of the West's managed decline. Okay. Now, this is not our Secretary of State saying that what a shame that our Western civilization is declining. Okay. That's not what he's saying. This is our Secretary of State saying that it was a managed decline. This is what Q has been telling us. This is what President Trump has been telling us. And this is Marco Rubio telling a room full of people, by the way, that just gave him a standing ovation. Okay. This is, by the way, the standing ovation when he came up to the podium. Now, there were some sitting, we saw. There are still many sitting. And you could probably, if we had like a seating chart, okay, you could probably pick out the ones that are sitting, and you could determine that they are leaders of the countries or they are involved in this managed decline that he is talking about. Okay. But a lot of people standing. Let's go back to just the rest of this little clip.
do not seek to separate, but to revitalize an old friendship and renew the greatest civilization in human history. What we want is a reinvigorated alliance that recognizes that what has ailed our societies is not just a set of bad policies, but a malaise of hopelessness and complacency. An alliance is what the alliance that we want is one that is not paralyzed into technology. Instead, we wanted a alliance that's not paralyzed into inaction by fear of climate change, fear of war, fear of technology. Instead, we wanted an alliance that boldly races into the future. And the only fear we have is the fear of the shame of not leaving our nations prouder, stronger, and wealthier for our children. An alliance ready to defend our people, to safeguard our interests, and to preserve the freedom of action that allows us to shape our own destiny. Not one that exists to operate a global welfare state and atone for the purported sins of past generations. An alliance that does not allow its power to be outsourced, constrained, or subordinated to systems beyond its control. one that does not depend on others for the critical necessities of its national life, and one that does not maintain the polite pretense that our way of life is just one among many, and that asks for permission before it acts. And above all, an alliance based on the recognition that we, the West, have inherited together. What we have inherited together is something that is unique and distinctive and irreplaceable, because this, after all, is the very foundation of the transatlantic bond.
So, my friends, Farhad, good to see you, my friend. This is this is huge. Like, this is, you know, we had to sit through the apology tour of, you know, President Obama. We had to sit through the apology tour of Joe Biden, right? And apologize to the rest of the world, which President Trump is finally, not finally, this has been his mantra from day one, but is basically saying, why are we funding the rest of the world? Why are we propping up their manufacturing, their export and import into the United States, rather than propping up our own industry? And this is a huge thing, and as a result, has brought trillions upon trillions of dollars into the United States in the form of investment. So let's say, I don't know what the most recent number is, but let's call it $20 trillion. Even if it's less than that, I think it's somewhere in the ballpark of 20 trillion. These aren't investors that are looking to get back, you know, $20 trillion next week. Okay. These are investors that are looking to maybe turn that into 100 trillion within the next several years. Okay. Because it's an investment. If they were investing, you know, $20 billion, they'd want at least $100 billion return. So this is an incredible investment into our country, into our manufacturing base. And every investment, you've got to remember as well, not only is going to return 5-fold, 10-fold, 20-fold down the road, but it's also going to supporting industries. Every one of these factories is going to need food delivery, restaurants, postal offices. You know, it's going to have a surrounding infrastructure increase in financial gain just to support the $20 trillion investment. I don't know what those numbers are, but if you guys know that percentage, like, like 25% of investment is in support of that investment or something along those lines. But you get the picture. This is much bigger than even, the 20 trillion that is unprecedented in our country. And this is much bigger. So this is kind of like, President Trump is like an NBA player, and he walks into a room and gets criticized by a bunch of fifth graders, that play on their fifth grade team, right? Or fourth grade team or sixth, whatever. This is where they come to learn on how to be a better player. They're not going to go out and criticize these NBA players. They're going to say, wow, I wish I could do this or that or this. And they're going to try to better their game in order to emulate, an NBA player or an NCAA player. Certainly, hopefully they don't travel as much as NBA players, or that they don't carry the ball as much as NBA players, because that's really the wrong way to play. But that's a whole other story. So, so that's that's something that is that is very evident. Like when Marco Rubio walked into there, it's almost like he's the co-CEO, or he's he's the Department of State, but he's doing so much more, right? It's almost like he's the vice president because of the amount of things he's doing. But as we know, vice presidents are, mostly ceremonial. But and we haven't been seeing much of JD Vance, at least I haven't, but we've been seeing like just a ton of Marco Rubio. So that's like him walking into the room and he's the NBA player, and all these other, are just kids trying to play the game or not knowing how to play the game. Or worse yet, an audience that has been paid to throw games. Because what these people in the Munich conference are doing is they're throwing their country. You think it's horrendous for a prize fighter to throw a fight, or a big time, major leaguer to throw a game, meaning, help the those that are betting on the game. These people that Marco Rubio is speaking to, many of them have been paid to throw their country. Okay. And speaking of our country, we need sovereignty. We need to be able to, keep our country safe and sovereign. I'm going to show you two things. This was Rubio a couple days ago.
We revoked her visa. She said it's an F1 visa, I believe. We revoked it, and here's why. And I'll say it again. I said it everywhere. Let me be abundantly clear, okay? If you go apply for a visa right now, anywhere in the world, let me just send this message out. If you apply for a visa to enter the United States and be a student, and you tell us that the reason why you're coming to the United States is not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. If you lie to us and get a visa and then enter the United States, and with that visa participate in that sort of activity, we're going to take away your visa. And once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legally in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right, to remove you from our country. So it's just that simple. I think it's crazy. I think it's stupid for any country in the world to welcome people into their country that are going to go to your universities as visitors. They're visitors, and say, I'm going to your universities to start a riot. I'm going to your universities to take over a library and harass people. I don't care what movement you're involved in. Why would any country in the world allow people to come and disrupt? Now, we gave you a visa to come and study and get a degree, not to become a social activist that tears up our university campuses. And if we've given you a visa and then you decide to do that, we're going to take it away. I encourage every country to do that, by the way, because I think it's crazy to invite students into your country that are coming onto your campus and destabilizing it. We're just not going to have it. So we'll revoke your visa, and once your visa is revoked, you're illegally in the country and you have to leave. Every country in the world has a right to decide who comes in as a visitor and who doesn't. If you invite me into your home because you say, I want to come to your house for dinner, and I go to your house and I start putting mud on your couch and spray painting your kitchen, I bet you're going to kick me out. But we're going to do the same thing if you come into the United States as a visitor and create a ruckus for us. We don't want it. We don't want it in our country. Go back and do it in your country, but you're not going to do it in our country.
Anybody have a problem with what Marco just said? Because I don't. And I am so glad that we're no longer apologizing for being the great nation that we are, without question. And Rubio has been, he talked about the colonialization of the United States, and also about how Spain, being from Europe, was a big part of the cowboy culture here. Here's AOC on that subject.
Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture.
Western culture. Okay, remember, this is an actress. She was cast in this role. Central casting. Enjoy the show.
Favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain.
I thought they came from Winnetou, but
I believe the Mexicans and descendants of African enslaved peoples would like to have a word on that. Rubio's speech.
So that was her favorite part. Like there was no, and they're trying to pick it apart, right? Because Rubio's speech was fire, and it was pro-American, and it was pro-Western culture, and how the Americans have to in order for America to be strong, okay, um, you know, our allies have to be strong. So he was talking about propping up everybody, all of America's allies. So and she's gonna try to pick out something about that he said about Spain. Meanwhile, Spain introduced horses to the United States, from what I understand, in terms of riding them. But it's just, even if Rubio was wrong about that, it's important to understand that this is the deep state mechanism that is either trying to take out President Trump's agenda, trying to stop President Trump's agenda, um, that that shouldn't. Why would you get in the way of that unless you're anti-American? Okay. Let me play for you, and this is going to be significant. Now I've got to show you this. This is really, by the way, just welcome everybody. Monday night, February 16th. What a time to be alive. I mean, what a time to be alive on this earth and be witness to this incredible revolution and the Great Awakening, which is the great meme by Spiritual Street Fighter, the Great Awakening. And so thank you, Spiritual Street Fighter, for just letting us use your beautiful artwork for this show. And this is the full meme that she made, the Great Awakening, and I just want to give it its due here, and let you see it. Woman standing on the precipice, looking up at Q and the Great Awakening. So that, from our friend Spiritual Street Fighter, that has been who has been reposted by President Trump, I think 41 times. 41 times. This is a very pro Q woman, a real patriot, pro MAGA, pro Trump, and he has led us to her 41 times, knowing full well that she is full on Q, just like we are here. And it's a beautiful thing to see, because we're just we're just getting warmed up. Let me share this with you. Now, the significance of this is, somebody replied to Tucker Carlson and his interview with Antonin Scalia. Okay. And let me play this for you here.
Diversity alone is not what makes a great nation. I mean, diversity alone makes some of the tribal societies of the world that never quite make it, such as some of the places in the Middle East where we're trying to establish nationhood. As I said earlier, it's part of our tradition that everybody can be an American. But there has been a common culture. Yeah, you don't have to belong to it, but there has been that. And
what is it? What is it?
Well, okay, you want to know what it is? Number one. Okay.
Is there a bond? Is there a common culture?
I think. Well, let me tell you a story. My junior year of college, I studied in Switzerland, and I used to get really annoyed when the French Swiss professors I had would refer constantly to les pays anglo-saxons, the Anglo-Saxon countries, meaning England, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. I said, hey, my name is Scalia. and I'm as American as anybody. Look at this face. Is this an Anglo-Saxon face? I had never been in England, but at the end of my year, I went to England, and I felt at home. There is no doubt that American culture, American common culture, which nobody has to belong to, originates with English culture. And that includes Shakespeare, it includes nursery rhymes that we all know and that we use as examples. That's our common culture. And I think the framers recognized that. Diversity is fine, but diversity does not make a nation.
Okay. Now, there's some really significant things going on here that I want to bring to your attention. Now, I've shared with you that without question, and I've shown you ample evidence of such, that the White Hats have been in control, partial control of Twitter since the takedown of Prince Al-Walid in Saudi Arabia. We're going to get to that in a moment because we were taken there today by POTUS. And so I think you're going to be very fascinated at the way I weave this, but I'm not weaving this. I'm showing you the weave, right? At how President Trump and with his use with Q's use of Elon Musk has brought something very significant into today. Okay. Now, Antonin Scalia, Q has told us, was murdered by Barack Obama, that Barack Obama went out of his way, went off the reservation, if you will, from Secret Service, protection, flew into Texas, was there for the murder of Antonin Scalia. We have been, told that without question, the deep state took this man out. When you hear him talking about this, and this is 2006, this is when he said he went to England and he felt the culture. He felt, and here's the thing about diversity that is never discussed. And tell me if you've heard this before. But what is never discussed about diversity is that we are going to a very surface level of distinction of human beings to make our culture diverse. What color is their skin? Well, let's sprinkle in some black, some brown, some yellow, some, whatever color, right? Whatever ethnicity, whatever culture. Okay. And let's make sure that in an all male world, we have plenty of females. Okay. And it's gone to a whole other level where we're now allowing men into women's sports just because they say they're a female. Okay. So this is our current kind of definition of diversity, right? But what's never discussed is if we were all white, for example. Now, I know that I'm not looking for that. Okay. I'm not saying that we should be. I'm saying that if we were all white, look at the incredible diversity of character, diversity of interests, diversity of culture, because those white people would be Italian, Irish, English, Australian, all across the spectrum, right? I've known, I've interacted with, been friends with, known so many Black people in my life. Let's say that we were all Black. I could show you such a huge diversity within the Black population that I've been exposed to in my lifetime. Huge diversity, interests, character, culture, family, no family, you know, and that is diversity because you're going beneath the surface of the skin and looking at the individual for who they are. And boy, oh boy, are you and I diverse. And we don't have to be different colors. We don't have to be from different countries. We have a diversity within our own culture because of our willingness to open up our culture to those who may not, thrive in our culture. And that's okay too. But what's not okay is the DEI, the forced, men and women's sports, the forced migration from other countries into our country, thus destroying our culture. Okay. I'll give you an example. England that he spoke of. What if he went back to England today, 20 years later? How different would his experience be? How different is the experience of those who were born and bred in Britain? Okay. So what he's speaking to is very significant. Now I want to show you two things about this. One is that first of all, Elon Musk said, let me pull this up for you, that for a country to survive, there has to be a common culture. Nobody dies to defend a multicultural economic zone. American culture, with its English, Scottish, or Irish origin,
as I
is
said,
great and worth fighting for. Some may not realize it, but that's why people come here. Now, I want to take you to a post from President Trump today. Actually, this was shared to me by Kevin. Thank you, brother, for this. This is President Trump's recent post, not recent, but today at 2:27 p.m. Happy President's Day. Prices and inflation are way down. The stock market and your 401ks are way up. Our military is strong and powerful. Our law enforcement is great, and our border is 100% secure. Murders per year 1900 and crime are at record lows, like record lows since 1900, like he said in the gaggle. And our country is bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Working hard, enjoy your day, President DJT. Now, obviously, if this was a 7th grade paper, he would have gotten marked up for quite a few things because these things are not proper nouns and thus should not be capitalized in English grammar. Okay. Crime is not capitalized. Record is not all capitalized. Record lows. So there's some significant things happening here where President Trump is communicating to us. So we go to Snedheads, we go to research Q drops right here. And if you have to click the drop down menu, it's right here, research Q drops, and we go to capital letter counter. Capital letter counter takes us to this, and I put in that post and it comes up with 76 letters. Now we've been taken to drop 76 within the past week and a half. Let me show you the significance of drop 76. Drop 76 is November 5th, 2017, repost lost. So he's basically reposting this. Q is the Q team, not he. Martial law declared in Saudi Arabia. Why is this relevant? Okay. Now, what has been happening in Saudi Arabia that maybe we should be aware of? Okay. And I'll take you to one thing. Well, in United Arab Emirates yesterday, this is from the Middle East. yesterday, Netanyahu was reportedly diagnosed with cancer, and today, UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan allegedly suffered a stroke. Both were said to know too much. Okay. Now, what's significant? So there's definitely a lot going on with Saudi Arabia. Okay. Now the other thing is, the we just saw that Jeffrey Epstein, excuse me, thanked Al Salayem, I believe his name is, for the torture video. Okay, because some of these major problems are being exposed in the Epstein files and who was a part of them. And so one of them, who did Epstein thank for the torture video? And by the way, I showed this the other night on the show. I think it was Friday night when we had Sir Oliver on, which was a great show. If you haven't seen Friday night's show, please go back and check that out. Yes, Sulayem is his name. So this just dropped, excuse me, a couple of days ago. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein expressed appreciation for a torture video in 2009, email writing, "Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video." He was addressing Sultan Ahmad bin Sulayem, a prominent Emirati businessman and then CEO chairman of DP World, a major Dubai-based global ports and logistics company. Bin Sulayem is described in reports as a longtime associate and close personal friend of Epstein, with their correspondence dating back years and involving business discussions, personal matters, and sexually explicit content. Okay. So if we go back to the drops, okay, we're taken to the Middle East, the heart of the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. Martial law declared in Saudi Arabia. Why is this relevant? Okay. I'm going to come back to this later. How much money, but Q told us that what happened in Saudi Arabia is going to happen here, meaning martial law, meaning military, the Insurrection Act, military takeover of, in my opinion, the legal from both the enforcement and the courts. How much money was donated to Clinton Foundation by Saudi Arabia? At my last count, it was $150 million. How much money was donated to John McCain Institute by Saudi Arabia? I remember $1 million back in the day, but I imagine it was probably more than that. How much money was donated to Pelosi? I'm not sure. How much money was donated to Chuck Schumer by Saudi Arabia? Chuck Schumer, what a piece of work he is right now. Just absolutely, just trying to prop up the deep state. Many of you have said we haven't heard from Pelosi. We know she was surrounded by U.S. Marshals years ago, definitely at the inauguration. What other bad actors have been paid by Saudi Arabia, bribed, not just Democrats? Why did the Bush family recently come out against POTUS? That was a big one for me, folks. When I saw the Bushes were against POTUS, I was like, yeah, he's definitely going to take out the deep state. Who is good? What are the laws in Saudi Arabia versus U.S. charged criminals? What information might be gained by these detainees? Why is this important? So I believe what Q is inferring here is that they can torture people in Saudi Arabia to give up information. Saudi Arabia, the U.S. In other words, what happened in Saudi Arabia will happen in the U.S. What forces actively deployed in Saudi Arabia? National Guard. President Trump gave our military to the Saudi Arabia for the coup. Have faith. These, the crumbs in time, will equate to the biggest drops ever disclosed in our history. Remember, disinformation is real. God bless. Alice in Wonderland, that's Hillary and Saudi Arabia, the Great Awakening, which I didn't know I was going to dive to when I used that meme for our thumbnail tonight. Now, let me take you down the mirror. Think mirror. Where is John Podesta? Where is Tony Podesta? Now, remember, I've told you that not only did when the purge happened in Saudi Arabia, did the White Hats take partial control over Twitter because they got Al-Walid's access. They hung him by his ankles, folks. Do you think they gave the White Hats he gave the White Hats his login information to the C level that they had at Twitter as a big, huge investor? Absolutely. And we were told in two different tweets by President Trump and by Melania, basically that they had the source code. And I've showed you that live on this show. So when you all were saying, when we were all talking about Elon Musk coming in and buying Twitter, I told you that the White Hats were not going to leave X or Twitter up to chance. They were taking control of Twitter. And that's what I believe happened with the relationship with Elon Musk. And so when we see a post by Elon, right, like what we just had today, okay, what I just showed you, there is a very significant chance that that was planted as part of the Great Awakening. This is a clip from that segment I just showed you. Look at who is here. This, my friends, is John Podesta. Okay. Sitting across the table from Antonin Scalia. John Podesta was involved in that assassination. They might even be hatching this plan with Podesta sitting across from Scalia, because Podesta and the deep state know, Soros, know that they are going to impregnate our country with multiculturalism. And they certainly couldn't have a man like this on the Supreme Court bench. Okay. So let me take you back to the drop. 67 Think Mirror. Where's John Podesta? Where's Tony Podesta? By the way, they were both implicated in the disappearance of a young girl in, I believe it was one of the Caribbean islands. Maybe it was Mexico. If you guys know, please let me know. Along with Ghislaine Maxwell. And they all happened to be in that town at that time. Did one or both escape the country and was let out? Where's Barack Obama? Where was Barack Obama yesterday? Okay. To me, this is pointing us to the murder of Antonin Scalia. What is the difference? Because here's the thing, folks. Imagine if the current Supreme Court finds out that a Supreme Court judge was murdered by the very deep state that President Trump is taking out. I'm guessing that they are going to put less credibility into Congress. They're going to put less credibility into the judiciary below them, because under the watch of all of that was the murder, the assassination of Antonin Scalia. What is the difference between commercial and private? Security clearance for departure. Who's the TSA head? Which party did he contribute to? This was back during the days of Michael Chertoff. He was Homeland Security head, not the TSA head. What is of particular interest when researching? How does Homeland Security interact with TSA? TSA is under Homeland Security. So this was the downing, the stopping of all commercial aircraft after 9/11. Who was authorized to depart? Only one plane. This was the family of Osama bin Laden and Obama bin it's confusing. So this was the family that was allowed to fly out. Where were they from? Saudi Arabia. Who specifically authorized this? I believe it was either Bush or it was um, uh, Cheney. What airport did the departure take place at? I don't remember. Why is this relevant? How does it all tie together? Podesta's plane has military escort, i.e., tag, and is being diverted, forced down. Short delay. This will be leaked. Watch the news. Have faith. We haven't seen Tony Podesta or John Podesta in quite some time. I don't know if you guys have. Watch the news. Have faith. What fake news anchor will not be on air tonight? Why is this relevant? What was stated in the past? I believe that was the little fat man Seltzer. Was it Seltzer that was maybe not on that night? Where did the 18 billion from Soros go? Why? Can it be used by bad actors, escape bribes, rogue contractors, etc.? Slush fund? Did the U.S. government seize, stop, track other slush funds that prevent or create risk to operate? Why did Jared Kushner travel to Saudi Arabia recently? What is Saudi Arabia known for? It's known for bribing our politicians, but also known for child trafficking, which is coming out in the Epstein files with some of these men from the Middle East. Where do the biggest donations originate from? Why is this relevant? What else is relevant with Saudi Arabia? Safe harbor, port of transfer, all about human trafficking. Why was there a recent smear campaign against Jared Kushner and POTUS? Because they knew what was going on in Saudi Arabia. Why is the timing important? Who released the article? The Council of Wizards and Warlocks cannot be defeated. Nice view up here. Wizards and Warlocks, remember when Todd Gediminsky years ago found the picture of Elon Musk and also of the head of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, and they were pictured in the Oval Office, and they were pictured right in front of the flag that made it look like they were wearing wizard caps of the stars and the Stars and Stripes flag behind them. I thought that was pretty interesting, and we talked about how maybe Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey have turned and are part of the Wizards and Warlocks. Nice view up here. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting, okay? The timestamp of that tweet by that post by President Trump, and I'll take you again back to this post about Happy President's Day. It's a significant one because it's talking about the day itself, right? And then we go to the timestamp here, okay? And we are taken to Watch the Water. And in Watch the Water, this is when President Clinton was the president, and the CIA was in control of Kim Jong-il, the leader of North Korea, so-called leader, but in actuality, it was the CIA. But what's important here in Watch the Water is these are very choppy waters. And when President Trump took over and he got the CIA out of North Korea, the waters were calm. In his picture with Kim Jong-un, actually, it wasn't him. I think it was a delegation, but it was the same mural behind, but it was calm waters. Okay, I believe this is Un's sister here. I'm not for certain, but look who is front and center. But John Podesta, right? John Podesta. Okay. So let's go back to the Q drops. Okay. This was that particular Q drop, the timestamp of President Trump's post. And then we see the American flag for God and country, which also, whenever there's an ID of 6 zeros, I always take you to the blue number right beside it. It's always significant going back into the drops, and we go to drop 95. Drop 95. What happened in Saudi Arabia will happen here, Asia, and EU. That means National Guard, military control, martial law, and Not only is it going to happen, what happened in Saudi Arabia, it happened here, but it's also going to happen in Asia and the EU. Does that mean U.S. military? Sure sounds like it, doesn't it? So if you're wondering, Australia, if you're going to be a part of this, if you're wondering, Europe, are we going to be a part of this, make America great again? Yes, absolutely. Q has been very explicit. This is a worldwide movement. Where we go one, we go all. Worldwide. This is a worldwide revolution, not just here in the United States. It didn't even start in the United States from a standpoint of the military, control. It started in Saudi Arabia by President Trump and the Q team. Keep digging and keep organizing the info into graphics. Critical. God bless Hillary and Saudi Arabia, which was Alice and Wonderland. Snow White, Godfather 3, which to me implicates organized crime and also the Vatican. That was President Trump's post, my friends. Okay. He is the one that has taken us on these communication journeys back into the Q drops. Without question, this is something that we should be paying attention to, especially given the fact that there is so much winning happening in our world right now, that we are finally able to see the truth and who's gotten in the way of the truth. This is Rubio going to meet with Hungarian leader, okay, and he's meeting with other world leaders in Europe that are, pro-Trump and on board with regaining their culture back. Okay. Busiest man in DC, this guy. Maybe next to President Trump, because President Trump is all over the place. Okay. So this is he's going to meet with these pro-Trump leaders and standing for the West, right? And so certainly something to keep an eye on, and certainly something that we should make sure that we understand is very significant in this war on the cabal, without question, right? Okay, so this is from let me pull this up. This is from OG Anon. More to come, and suppressed news, actually. OG Anon retruthed it. Israeli producer Dana Eden, 52, was found dead on Monday, February 16th, in her hotel room in Athens. She was a co-creator of the Apple TV Plus series Tehran about Mossad agents in Iran, and was preparing its 4th season. Let me ask you something, folks. I'm very critical of the English Parliament, the English royalty, the English, the head of the Parliament, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, being critical of all these mechanisms of the control over that country and so many other countries that are affected by it, including Europe, the European Union. Does that make me anti-British people? Does that make me an anti-Brit, an anti-Englishman? No. I've had lots of friends that were English. I've had, close friends. I was just communicating with, today from Great Britain, from Ireland. So my criticism of those governments and those mechanisms does not make me anti the people. So why are my criticisms of the Israeli government, the Israeli infrastructure of, for example, Mossad and the IDF and ISIS, why does my criticism of those things make me anti-Jewish? Simple question. Why? Why is it different? Why, if I am critical of the American Congress, does that not make me anti-American? We must separate the people from the non-Semites that actually control Israel. And those would be the Khazars from Europe. Okay. That would be the Rothschilds. So this is happening. Okay. This is, you know, we're seeing, you know, you cannot make Tehran look good. You cannot make Iran look good. Not in Jewish Hollywood, my friends. This is not okay. And so are these people paying the price for, you know, speaking out for the truth? Certainly, we certainly know that that many who have done far less are paying the price for such things, right? Here's something else from 12 hours ago. Okay. Here we go. The former chief of staff and senior advisor to Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu, Asher Hayan, has died suddenly at the age of 58. Huh. What's going on there? Are we approaching what Q has called suicide weekend by any chance? I don't know. I think we're closer this week than we were last. I think we're closer today than we were yesterday. Okay. And by the way, one of the drops that President Trump took us to, okay, asked how much money has Saudi Arabia given Chuck Schumer? Okay. And on the day following Secretary Rubio's speech in Munich, trying to bring back a culture and family, and how it's a, you know, manufactured decline of all those. President Trump takes us to a post that ties Saudi Arabia, the bloody wonderland, which we're going to find out now, and I want to take you to this in a second. But here's Chuck Schumer.
So, folks, we're here, of course, at Stonewall, which is the birthplace of the LGBTQ plus movement. The sacred ground here represents courage, resiliency, the fight for equality, which always goes on in America. This sacred ground is so important, and in 1969, as everybody knows, brave New Yorkers stood up here as an act of resistance, targeting against discrimination. It sparked the beginning of a movement that changed America and the world forever. And we're not going back. We're not going back. The Trump administration's removal of the Pride Rainbow flag from the Stonewall National Monument is a deeply outrageous action that must be reversed. It's an effing disgrace. Right. It's just awful. When the Trump administration ripped the Pride flag down, it was a direct attack on this community, attempt to chip away at hard-won civil rights. So today we're fighting back and taking action. I am introducing legislation to designate the Pride flag as a congressionally authorized flag in America, and that means it can be flown here and everywhere else. And no one can take it down.
All right. Listen, good luck with that, Chucky. Making the Pride flag the same level of reverence that our our actual excuse me one second, I'm sending something to myself so I could bring it up for you. And this is posturing, because he knows he's not going to get that passed in a Republican Congress or a Republican Senate. So and yet he's posturing for this community because, folks, they are clinging on to whatever vote they can get, because they're losing all of the immigration vote, the immigrant vote, right? They're losing all of the black vote, because the black population is awakening to the very detriment that the Democrat Party has truly been to this group of people. So they're waking up. They're not voting Democrat anymore. People that are struggling are not voting Democrat anymore. People that are overtaxed are not voting Democrat anymore. Some of them are. We haven't, won them back yet. But when we start to have free and fair elections, we are going to see that there are far more people on the side of common sense, family, American culture, America first, American families first, investment into our country instead of depletion of our country. You're going to see the midterms. People are saying, "Oh, I'm worried about the midterms." I am not worried one bit about the midterms, because we're going to have a real vote, and we're going to see exactly how few people, in relation to the masses in this country, are truly getting behind morons like Chuck Schumer. Okay. Now, let me take you to this, which is my brother-in-law shared with me. And this is going to curl your toes, but it's necessary for us to listen to this. Of course, if I unmute it.
We're here today. He would be a clinic escort, distracting women from the hatred. If Jesus were here today, he would be a clinic escort, distracting women from the hatred of the protesters.
She's talking about abortion clinic. If Jesus were alive today, he would be an abortion clinic escort. And these are people that escort people into these baby killing facilities. There's no two ways about this. They are killing life. They are killing human life without question. How they got to justify it was the psyop known as Roe v. Wade, which was a lie. And the woman who lied came out and said it herself.
Or an abortion doula, holding women's hands and offering support and love as they end their pregnancies.
Now, the birth of our daughter, we had a midwife and we had a doula. The people, and I know I'm close with several women, close friends that are midwives, because I got to know many of them in the anti-vaccination movement in California. When I say anti-vaccination movement, it was really pro-choice for what we would put in our child's bodies. These are exceptional women. These are women that are on call 24/7 when they have a client who is pregnant. These are women that have to forego the care of their own children to go birth a new child. We would often, um, take care of the daughter of our midwife who, when she had, a birth. Okay. So these are really special people, like really special women. And they're going to take the really sacred name of doula, a woman that assists in the birth of humanity, the birth of a child, and they're going to take it and they're going to use it and say that abortion doulas,
as they end their pregnancies. And I expect he would have a stern word for self-righteous legislators who use abortion as a political issue rather than showing compassion for the people seeking abortions.
This is not a political issue. It's not a political issue. If somebody is using abortion for a political issue, what does that say about them? Doesn't say much for their character. This is a human life issue.
Today, on this Rose Sunday, I wanted to share some of the stories we have collected because these are the sacred stories of women's lives. If Jesus were giving his...
Wait a minute. These are the sacred stories of women's lives, except for the women that are being aborted, which are 50%.
His sermon today, he might also have said, "Blessed are those who end pregnancies."
So she won't say, "Blessed are those who kill babies." She won't say, "Blessed are those who end the life of a human child growing within the womb of a woman." She calls it a pregnancy. And this language, by the way, is intentional to diminish human life.
For they will be known for their loving kindness. I have been pregnant 4 times. I have had 2 abortions, and I have 2 amazing children.
So she could have 4 amazing children, but she only has 2. And she's celebrating that.
Each of my reproductive decisions to have
Reproductive decisions, reproductive health. These are the types of words and language that Eric Blair, aka George Orwell, said was doublespeak. It's language that is couched in a very pro and compassionate way in order to inspire those who themselves are compassionate. Because killing babies just doesn't sell for the abortionists.
Have children and not to have children were sacred decisions because they reflect the moral responsibility of reproductive power that is part of our inheritance as human creatures. Each of you has a reproductive story. And given that 1/4 of American women will have an abortion by the age of 45, I imagine some of your reproductive journeys also include abortion. Blessed are those who end
reproductive journeys. What about the journey of the baby whose journey started at conception?
Blessed are those who end pregnancies.
Wow. You see, I sat with a group of people that were disgusted by this message, obviously, as you are, as I am. But we know that people think like this. I want to know who they are. I want to know, who supports them. I want to know the origin of such demonic activity.
For they will be known for their loving kindness.
Oh, I got to play that again, folks. This is unbelievable.
Blessed are those who end pregnancies, for they will be known for their loving kindness. Reimagining our theological understanding of abortion is essential to addressing the violence that is being done to people across the country in the name of Christianity. In the face of the rampant reproductive injustice in our society, what does God require of us? Amen.
Amen. And then she ends with amen. Wow, folks. Wow. Okay. This is truly next level. Now, I want to take you to who this is. Okay. We see Protestia. Okay. Protestia is the name on the, let me see here. Let me bring that up for you. Protestia is a conservative evangelical Christian online platform. What is conservative about that? What is evangelical about that? And what is Christian about that? That operates as a polemical journalism and discernment ministry. It focuses on reporting, analysis, commentary, and critique of perceived theological errors. So I guess birth is a theological error. Doctrinal issues and downgrades in modern Christianity, particularly within evangelical, Protestant, and Southern Baptist circles. The official self-description from Protestia.com emphasizes it is explicitly Protestant. It publishes arguments rather than neutral consensus pieces. It operates from a conservative, evangelical, Protestant theological framework. It describes itself as a polemical Christian news and discernment outlet dedicated to exposing what it sees as ecclesiastical decline, false teaching, and theological mischief makers. False teaching. So having a child and raising a child, I guess, is a false teaching by them. Okay. They have a podcast called Protestia Tonight. Okay. And it has roots, connections to earlier controversial discernment ministries like Pulpit and Pen, founded by J.D. Hall, who was involved early on but faced significant personal ministry scandals, including disqualification from pastoral ministry and later legal issues. Current operations appear led by others. Figures like David Morrell frequently appear in their content. The tone is intentionally confrontational and critical, often labeling things as heretical, sinful, or dangerous. And it frequently attracts both strong supporters who see it as necessary watchdog work and sharp critics who view it as divisive, overly harsh, or uncharitable. Yeah, so that is Protestia. Okay. So be on the lookout for such Protestia. Okay. And absolutely unbelievable. I have a feeling that congregation will make sure she's gone from speaking. Yeah. 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 We all might be theological errors, right, BZ? Right. Trillium, good to see you, my friend. Ravenswing says, God requires us to live and protect life of all kinds unless they are evil. Then we can tie a millstone around their neck and toss them into the depths. And by the way, my friends, are we or are we not seeing the people that deserve millstones around their neck. We are seeing it every day. Her children need to get far away from her. Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Marty, for reposting, guys. Also, please tag other influencers, other people that would benefit by this, by your share. I know, on Snedheads, my friends, you are going to be seen. You are going to be heard. But unfortunately, on platforms like X and other platforms, often much of your content is either, shadow banned, censored, or just not seen. But if you tag people with bigger followings, then you can get seen. Okay. And if you appreciate this content, please thumbs up, share it, and support it however way you can. Okay. Because this is the kind of content that I believe, and I think that you believe because you are here, is very important and necessary content. So, yeah, Old Yeller says, time to invest in Millstone futures. That's a great point. That was not on X, but Jingo, I just shared it on X. It was on Instagram, and I just shared it on my timeline on X. So if you're on X, you can find it, as you know, at Dave Snedeker. But you can also find it, if you're not on X, you can find it on, what do you call it? Snedheads. All right. And here's my X account if you want to follow me on X. And for those who share it, I try to follow back anybody that is sharing this platform. And I'll tell you, anybody that shares tonight's show on X, I will go on and try to follow you all back. Okay. Because I try to support you however I can, as you do me. So, so what an absolute tragic thing to hear coming from a Christian pulpit. But at the same time, how refreshing that we are able to see that for what it is and hear it and get people's reaction to know what side of life they are on. Robert Duvall, I did not know this, but Moonbeam just let me know, died yesterday at the age of 95. How interesting, by the way, that President Trump took us to drop 95 today, and the significance of that particular drop. Yes, Robert Duvall died on February 15th, 2026. Okay. He had some incredible roles. I enjoyed watching Robert Duvall, and rest in peace, of course, unless he was a part of a greater and very, very dark past involving children. So, there you have it, my friends. So the President Trump today on Truth was doing a lot of drops concerning elections in North Carolina and elections in Texas. A few or Snedheads have made the connection for a few political nominees in Texas that I'm going to do a show with. We've talked with Doc Pete Chambers' group. We've also talked with Mike Wheeler, who is a congressional candidate. And a friend of mine is helping him with his campaign. He's not been endorsed by President Trump, but he is up against the Republican machine and has also been stabbed in the back by Greg Abbott. So we're going to hear that story and more coming up in the coming weeks before the March 3rd election. But President Trump is letting people know who he supports in North Carolina, in Texas. And so that's most of his posts today. So be on the lookout for that, especially if you're in North Carolina or Texas, to see who he's endorsing and why, right? So literally an hour ago, he posted probably 20 supporting posts on Truth about these various folks. That's why the post that he made with the capital letters, for example, by the way, there aren't these Truth Social posts are not filled with capital letters. Most of them are quite very, very normal in their capitalization, with the exception of this one by Bill Maher. Okay. Sometimes in life you waste time. TV host Bill Maher asked to have dinner with me through one of his friends, also a friend of mine, and I agreed. He came into the famed Oval Office much different than I thought he would be. He was extremely nervous, had zero confidence in himself, and to soothe his nerves, immediately within seconds asked for a vodka tonic. He said to me, "I've never felt like this before. I'm actually scared." In one respect, it was somewhat endearing. Anyway, we had a great dinner. It was quick, easy, and he seemed to be a nice guy. And for his first show after our dinner, he was very respectful about our meeting, which I've played for you here. It was a very nice commentary on President Trump and his graciousness and his the way he carried himself. But with everything I have done in bringing our country back from oblivion, why wouldn't he be? But then I noticed his show started to devolve in the same old story. Very boring, anti-Trump, no mention of the perfect border, lowest crime in 125 years, the mass removal of stone-cold criminals, the 50,000 level Dow, the 7,000 S&P, both highest ever, least number of murders since 1900, Venezuela, Midnight Hammer, which was, of course, Iran, the Iran nuclear facility. Soleimani dead. Al-Baghdadi dead. Lowest inflation in years, 1.2% for the last 3 months. The rebuilding of our military, 8 war stoppages, and on and on and on. In any event, it was a total waste of time for me to have this jerk at the White House. And last night, after explaining what a disaster Canadian leaders are to deal with, how Canada has ripped off the United States for years on trade, but not anymore, I jokingly stated in a truth that the first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. Now, President Trump said that jokingly, okay? And I told you I thought it was a joke, but at the same time, there might be something underlying this. Well, he went on and on about the hockey statement, like, what kind of a person would say such a foolish thing as this, as though I were being serious when I said it. Fortunately, his television ratings are so low that nobody will learn about his various fake news statements about me. He is no different than Kimmel, Fallon, or Colbert, but I must admit, slightly more talented. Anyway, Bill Maher is a highly overrated lightweight, and Republicans should stop using him to show how the left is coming over our way. Our base, the greatest of all time. This is true, folks. The Trump base, the America First, MAGA base, is the greatest of all time. And by the way, how did President Trump create that? He went in front of we, the people, hundreds of times with his rallies, with his speeches, with his access that he has given the fake news media, and not just the press room of the White House, but also of in the Oval Office, executive order signings, his gaggles on Air Force One, his gaggles before he steps onto Marine One or Air Force One, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, his interviews. Our base, the greatest of all time, laughs at your weakness when you do it. Maher asked me if he could come back to the White House again, and with his friend also asked to come to the wonderful White House Christmas party, but he didn't. Regardless, I'd much rather spend my time making America great again than wasting it on him. Bill continues to suffer from a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome, and there is nothing that will ever be done to cure him of this serious disease. Thank you for your attention in this matter, to this minor matter, President DJT. Now, a lot of caps in here. So we're going to go to the capital letter counter. We're also going to go to the timestamp. The timestamp was 11:23 a.m. Okay. So let me go to 11:23. Okay. Then let me go to Snedheads. Okay. Please join us over there, folks. You can drop down, you can click on research Q drops. You can go to here, you can go to capital letter counter. You can go to and drop in the highlighted of that, and you come up with 216. So we're going to go to drop to 16. Okay. So let's start with drop to 16. Keyhole. Happy hunting. Interesting. Okay. Now, Keyhole, if you remember, was a DARPA project, a CIA driven but DARPA project that was closed down, if you will, not closed down, still being used today. For example, they could pull up my house right now and see my car and it would be today. It would be right now. They have the ability to do that right now. But they gave the early version of Keyhole to Eric Schmidt. And Eric Schmidt created Google Earth with Keyhole. Now, Google Earth, if you look up your house, it may be from like 2 years ago. And you're like, oh, I used to have that thing in the yard. I don't have it there anymore, right? That's because it was from 2 years ago. Okay. Happy hunting. Okay. So they're trying, Q is in this manner was trying to get us to hunt for what Keyhole is and what it was all about and its eventual ties to the Alphabet company. Okay. Now, this is the drop of the timestamp. Okay. And this was when President Trump had the generals in the Oval Office. And when he said, this is you know what you're looking at? What, Mr. President? Someone from the press asked. The calm before the storm. This represents the calm before the storm. Remember, we were taken to the Q drop today, and I told you this was the storm. Okay. And by the way, we have pictures in the Q drops of Eric Schmidt and the governor, Bill Richardson of New Mexico, which is where what is? Zorro Ranch, Epstein Zorro Ranch, which the day of the Epstein drops that were so big was the day of the release of Melania, the movie, which President Trump mentioned again today. He's got a movie star on board. He was talking about Melania, right? And most of the whole movie is about the dress she wore that we called the Zorro dress because of the Z shape. Okay. And we also saw many other women dressed up this. So this was the storm that used to be, okay, in North Korea. Keyhole takes us to Eric Schmidt, okay, which also takes us to North Korea. All right. Now, who is standing next to Pence and POTUS? Okay. Well, who's standing next to Pence and POTUS? So let's look at that. Let me go back to the big picture. Standing next to POTUS is Pence. Who's standing next to POTUS and Pence is Admiral Mike Rogers of the NSA, which Q was in control of. Mike Rogers was the one that went to President Trump. It was an unsanctioned meeting, and he went to President Trump and said, Barack Obama is spying on you in Trump Towers. President Trump swiftly moved his offices to Bedminster, his golf course and resort in New Jersey, and they swept Trump Tower for listening devices. Nobody's been prosecuted for that yet. This is going to be huge when they release that information. And why wouldn't they release that information if they're releasing all the other information they are? What is the message? Okay, well, the importance of Mike Rogers in this photo. Okay. Bolton cleaning house. Out they go. A clean house is very important. Well, maybe one of the jobs of John Bolton was to clean out the very people that John Bolton knew were corrupt because John Bolton was corrupt. Okay, you with me on this? All right. This is all very, very significant. Let's see if we mirror 216, what 612 takes us to. And by the way, I'm doing this with you live. I have not done this before, this drop, this particular one. And it takes us to the Council on Foreign Relations. Okay, Council on Foreign Relations. Now, we know the Council on Foreign Relations is a deep state asset. We know that when Q shows us this triangle, that one side of this triangle has already fallen, and that is Saudi Arabia. The other two are Rothschilds and Soros. Okay. So again, we're taken to Saudi Arabia with President Trump's other truth post today that was not having to do with his endorsements in North Carolina and Texas. Because of the 6 zeros, we go to 63. Okay. So let's go to 63. We're also going to mirror 63. Okay. And we'll be done with this particular dive, unless, of course, we have somewhere else to go if it takes us elsewhere, right? So let's go to, I think I may have done something wrong there. Probably 63, 36. Okay. 612. I have to put a number before 612. All right. So here we go. So 612 took us to Council on Foreign Relations. 63 took us to those watching, you know who you are. You have a choice to make. He's talking to those people that maybe we're seeing resigning. Maybe we're saying they're not up for re-election. Maybe we're seeing them dying or committing suicide. You have a choice to make. You can stand up and do what you know to be right, or you can suffer the consequences of your previous actions. Imagine all the people that did not stand up to do what they know is right and know now that they are going to suffer the consequences of their previous actions. Make no mistake, you are on the losing side. The choice is yours. If you decide to take down posts online and the net, we will be ready, ending with a code and Alice in Wonderland, taking us back to the original Saudi Arabia post that President Trump shared with us earlier. Okay. And did I go to, I said I was going to mirror 63 to 36. Let me take us to that. Okay. That is why this happened. Okay. There we go. Okay. 36, drop 36. Military intelligence. No media, no leaks. How many military generals have been in and out of the White House in the past 30 days? Focus on Flynn. That was when Barack Obama was president. Okay. Because this is, well, let's see. No, this is when President Trump was president. How many military generals have been in and out of the White House in the past 30 days? And we just came from the picture of the military generals in the White House. So if you don't think 36, that we were intentionally taken to 36, if you think me going to that 63 in the blue and mirroring that is not significant, then why is this showing up the way it is? Background and potential role. What is the common denominator in terms of military backgrounds close to POTUS? Most of them were Marines. Why did Soros transfer the bulk of his public funds to a nonprofit organization? Well, what were we just showing you at the Council on Foreign Relations, but the three sides of the triangle: Saudi Arabia, Rothschilds, and Soros. We know that the reason Soros did this was because of Executive Order 13818 that President Trump signed, that would take away all assets of anybody that was indicted and proven to be engaged in crimes against humanity. Why is this relevant? Who owes a lot to very bad actors? How can she, and that's Hillary, which we covered in the previous Trump post that he took us back into the Q drops, of Hillary Clinton and how much she owed. How can she repay his payment was made under promise of victory when she did not win that presidential election? What cash payments occurred by Barack Obama? Again, Barack Obama is being brought up during the last 90 of his presidency to foreign states and or organizations. President Trump has not brought this up yet. He's led us to this in the Q drops, but has not brought this up. Imagine what's going to happen when that is being brought around. What slush fund did AG Sessions through DOJ put an end to? How does Soros, Obama, Clinton, Holder, Lynch, etc., all net many millions of dollars normally within a single tax year? Book deals with some of the corrupt publishers. What was negotiated on the tarmac between Bill Clinton and Lynch? Remember, it was expected HRC was going to win during this time period. What if the wizards and warlocks tipped off, excuse me, a local reporter as to the supposed unscheduled stop? Again, a mention of wizards and warlocks, the good guys. What if the NSA, under the personal direction from Admiral Rogers, had this meeting miscategorized? Let's go back to Admiral Rogers. Who is standing next to Pence and POTUS? Admiral Rogers. Okay. And so the timestamp, the capital letter count here, 216, mirrored. Okay. The 63 here, taking us to here, mirror that. You know, you know who you are. You have a choice to make. And then brought up again Admiral Rogers, and logged under a false identity to prevent bad actors from locating, while also verifying to said players all was clear, no logs. So this was intentionally miscategorized so that they wouldn't find it, so that because if they found it, they would erase it. Because we're going to find out that that tarmac meeting between Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch was all about stopping the investigation by the FBI into Hillary's emails so that she could win the election. What if the NSA, under the personal direction from Admiral, so I covered that. What really happened when the wizards and warlocks, again, revealed what they had to Barack Obama? Was Comey forced into the spotlight shortly thereafter, not by choice, to come out and say that we're reopening the investigation into the Hillary Clinton email campaign, or email scandal? Right before the election, no doubt, which would cast suspicion. These are crumbs, and you cannot imagine the full and complete picture. If Trump failed, if we failed, and HRC assumed control, we as patriots were prepared to do the unthinkable. This was leaked internally and kept the delegate recount scam and Barack Obama from declaring fraud. This was going to be a military coup, just like what we saw in Saudi Arabia, but it was going to be to the benefit of we the people. Dig deeper, missing critical points to paint full picture. There is simply no other way than to use the military. It's that corrupt and dirty. Please be safe and pray for those in harm's way as they continually protect and serve our great country. Folks, how am I able to do this? It is so simple, and this is why I show you, because you can do it yourself. And if you join us over on Snedeheads, you have these tools that you can look it up immediately, and you can really make it work for you. And just any post that President Trump does, you can go down the same dive that I did, right? And so please join us on snedheads.com, soon to be the Rubicon.com with a Q, and sign up. And it's free to join. But we ask you to support this incredible platform with $17 a month donation, which supports my work and supports this incredible platform. You see, stolen technology. Are we wearing the God's leftovers? Kathy Drexler posted these beds made by non-humans. It was deliberate. Rubio exposes the 50-year plot. And again, Kathy, if you posted this on X or some other platform, how many people would see it? We have 700 plus people on Snedeheads that everyone is going to see this who is friends with Kathy Drexler. So when you go down to add friends, and you're going to see friends there with their name and their picture, and just start adding friends. Proof Epstein was a Russian asset. This is good. Girlfriend was the daughter of a Mossad agent. Best friends with Israel's top lawyer. Close with former Israeli prime minister, that was Ehud Barak. Met with current Israeli prime minister, which is Netanyahu, of course. By the way, will someone get confirmation as to if he really did announce that he has cancer? Israeli spy stayed at his house, invited to bring his girls to Israel, fled to Israel to avoid charges, pictured in an IDF shirt, funded by pro-Israel billionaires, worked for the Rothschilds, which again is the other side of the triangle, donated to pro-Israel groups, ran Les Wexner's pro-Israel projects, backed Israeli settlements, called non-Jews goyim, managed Israeli diplomacy. All of this was done for the benefit of Russia. There is no other explanation. That's a great post, Wes. Great post. So you're gonna find, in Life Touch is the deep dive into the people who are involved with our pictures, our childhood class pictures. How absolutely tragic. Christy George posted this. This is a must watch, my friends. So please join us over on Snedeheads. So what if Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is part of a white hat op and clues lead to a series of Epstein Zorro's Ranch in New Mexico? Thank you, Phil Dan's posting that. Very good. So folks, please join us over there. Yeah, you're gonna love it. And you're not going to be putting up with a lot of You're not going to be putting up with propaganda or bots. We're not tracking you. We're not listening through your devices. And by the way, you can set it up on your app, on your phone. Like I have my phone right here, and this N right here, I don't know why it shows up with an N, but that I have set on my screen to be Snedheads. And there you go. You go right to it. So it's like an app, but it just takes you directly to the site. So you don't have to deal with upgrading apps and things of that nature, because we'll upgrade the site for you. Right. All right, my friends. Listen, we're there's so much to cover, but I just wanted to cover that part for you because of the significance of those posts and the significance of the dive that surrounds those posts. And I just want to also say that there was a shooting in Rhode Island at a hockey match. Okay. By the way, I just reposted the Protestant female minister. Okay, on my X. I thought I did it earlier, and I just did it now. So you'll see it now. That ridiculous minister. Oh, I guess I had already done that. Okay, let me do this. Let me delete that one and keep the one that has the YouTube right there. Okay. So, am I showing you that? That's what I was meaning to show you. This is my feed on X. All right, my friends. I will be on tomorrow. I will not be on Wednesday. So please keep that in mind. So I'll be on tomorrow. I will not be on Wednesday. And I should be on Thursday. Okay. So tonight, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Also, cakes. Lisa, happy birthday. Happy amazing February 16th birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lisa. Happy birthday to you. And what a day to be alive. What a day to celebrate you. What a day to celebrate the victories that are happening, the exposure that's happening. Keep up the fight, my friends. We are so close. We are so close. And if you think somebody would appreciate this content and you know somebody that would benefit from this content, please share it out. And if you have the means, I do not want you to if you do not, but if you have the means to support this this platform, this work that I do here, please do so. And I am so grateful. And we'll get you on the wheel spin for next time. And I'd like to thank Kathy Conklin for the steaks that she ordered for me through Lightning Springs Ranch. Folks, if you want incredible grass-fed, grass-finished organic beef, go to lightningspringsranch.com. Use SNED at checkout. You'll get 5% off. And you'll also, I want to thank you who ordered from Lightning Springs Ranch, because 5% you get off and 5% goes to a card that I'm able to then buy beef from Lightning Springs Ranch. So thank you, because I just got a delivery this week. I actually had it sitting out outside an extra day because I was out on my way out in the morning. I saw it. I'm like, I don't have time to deal with it now. I'll get it on the way back. I forgot it when I came back at night because it was dark and I didn't see it. And I got it the next morning and it was still frozen. Okay, so they pack it in dry ice and very well insulated, and it comes to your door frozen. It is the best meat you'll ever taste. So please check that out. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at PO 1554 Dripping Springs, Texas 78620. And I just wanted to thank you for joining us on this Monday night. We're almost at 1,000 on X. We are, I don't know how many hundreds over on YouTube, and over on Rumble, we're at 407. So thank you for joining us this evening. And if you want to know how to support us, please look in the chat, and you will see a way in which you can do so through a link, and you can support us in many ways. So thank you, my friends. Again, we Marco Rubio in Berlin, President Trump dropping bombs on what's really going on in the world, and it is a very, very exciting time, my friends. And thank you, Ravens Wings. I appreciate you, and yeah, incredible. And yeah, and that's the grass-fed, grass-finished beef. There we go. Thank you so much. I waited 5 years for this. Much love. Thank you, Cakes. Appreciate you. And again, happy birthday to you, Lisa, on this beautiful February 16th. Good night, my friends. I'll see you tomorrow night. Be well.